Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Keeping It Real on Purpose, the podcast where we come together with real talk about real issues and struggles in life, relationships, and in business, all of which is on purpose. I am your host, Edna White, and today our guest is none other than the esteemed business owner, speaker, and podcast host, Simon Rennie. Welcome to Keeping It Real on Purpose.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and share my story.
Wonderful. We are so glad to have you, the audience, and myself. How do you show up in the world? Share that with us.
Yeah, so I am passionate about men's mental health, and my business is centered around men's mental health, and I guess it shows up as a mental health advocate. So I'm very open about my own journey with mental illness. I've lived with obsessive compulsive disorder since I was 8 years old, and I've experienced lots of bouts of depression and anxiety, and I even experienced workplace burnout in 2020 in my old career. So I'm very passionate about talking about these things because I know a lot of guys out there really struggle with that. And so I hope to be an inspiration for guys to speak up about mental illness.
Right.
But also, people in general to speak up about mental illness because it's still very much a taboo topic. And the more we can talk about it, the more we can normalize it, like we do our physical health as well.
Absolutely. So that's a really good point. About 2 years ago, I had a few men on talking about men's mental health because I had the strong woman's syndrome, no crying, no getting sad, the typical thing, and it really was killing me. It was making me very ill until I realized it was really killing me to kind of live up to this strong person persona. I really didn't understand, and I can understand now how men are told no crying, stiff upper lip, you're the leader of the group, of the family, if your father passes away, you're now that you take his place. I can really understand that. Can you give a little bit of like insight to that space where men, about mental
definitely. So I was only reflecting about this week as well. So I grew up in the 80s and 90s in the northern suburbs of Adelaide. So Adelaide, South Australia, is like a working class town.
Gotcha.
But particularly the northern suburbs, it's manufacturing, it's trades, and there's pockets of welfare and low socio-economic. So in the 80s and 90s, this is all before the internet and before smartphones and before broadband internet. And so my worldview was really influenced by the people around me. So I had 3 brothers in my household, plus my dad, so four guys in the household.
Oh, wow.
5 guys in the household. So sorry, Mum. and I played Australian rules football, basketball, athletics, and so everything I knew about being a man was influenced by the people in these environments and so forth. So we were taught, boys don't cry because to be a man is to be masculine and tough and strong and not show emotions. And so from a very young age, that's all I knew. That's how I knew to be and live and to feel and to emote. But then when I developed OCD at 8, I couldn't tell anybody and talk about it because I didn't know what mental health was or mental illness was. In that period, we didn't talk about it. And I didn't know what was happening, and it was very weird what was happening. So I bottled it up for 20 years, and it wasn't until 10 years ago that I finally went into a doctor's room and said, I think I have mental health issues. And from there, I've had a 10-year journey of opening up and talking to different therapists and being on medications, and then now, opening up my own Mindful Men business, dedicated to stopping guys from bottling it up for 20 years and challenging those social constructs of what it means to be a man, and then channeling our emotions in a healthy way, rather than things like explosive anger or explosive, suicide and all these types of things. actually getting the help when they need it.
Mm-hmm. And I think you said something that's really important, the emotional part. I think the not paying attention or addressing the emotions and having them, experiencing them really lent to our mental status, our mental issues,
Yeah.
me not crying, me not laughing, and I thought it was all like we couldn't do those things. Like, my trauma was hinged on children should be seen and not heard. So it was like,
Yeah.
oh, I got to be quiet. I can't,
Yeah.
if something's hurting me, I got to be quiet. I can't tell everybody that, because I'm supposed to be seen. And I know now I see how it like kind of plays for the men. That's even like compounded double. It really is. It really is. It's compounded.
It's an interesting point because, like, I remember being around that 10 years old and in the schoolyard, and my best mate was crying one day. And I went into that automatic masculinity mode.
Yeah.
And I went up to him and said, "Mate, you've got to stop crying. Boys don't cry." I didn't even ask him what was wrong. And,
right.
and he's like, and he looked at me and he said, "Simon, I can cry if I want to."
Oh.
And I'm like, what? This is a foreign language you're talking about, like, right now. Like, we are not meant to cry. He's like, "I can cry if I want to." And he pushed me away, and that was it. And that planted the seed that I've now got today, that I'm living today. That, okay, boys can cry. Maybe the things I was taught in the 80s and 90s, before the beautiful age of Google and Facebook and social media, because it's very easy for young people these days to get information. They go, okay, I'm feeling these things, do a quick Dr. Google search, okay, maybe I've got some mental health issues. And it's okay for them to talk about it, but 80s and 90s, like doing dial-up, trying to find a doctor, like,
forget it.
Doctors didn't even have websites back then.
Right. I think the only doctor we ever heard of was our guidance counselors. Remember them? The guidance counselors? I don't know what they're called now.
Guidance counselors and doctors.
I don't know what they're called now, but the guidance counselors was like our outlet, our outlet.
Yeah. And then the next part was Dr. Phil.
Yeah, Dr. Phil. And there was another doctor. Wait. There was a book. Remember that book that came out, How to Have a Newborn and all? What was the guy's name? I can't remember his name. And he had this big book out, and you had to, you had to read. I forgot the name of the man, because as soon as you said that, I was like, what is his name? It's not Freud, but it's somebody else that you had to have this book. And matter of fact, I think he came out from, if it was not Oprah, it was one of Jenny, like, remember Jenny Jones? Remember her? Remember her? Remember, right? It was on a Jenny Jones show or something like that. But, that was our only answers. Like, those kind of shows, when he started coming out, like when you started acting weird, you're like, that might be it. That might be it.
Things like Jerry Springer and the Ricky Lake show.
Yeah, that's
thing.
Right. They were I forgot about Ricky Lake. Yeah, Ricky Lake. Yeah.
Actually, Ricky Lake was my favorite, but like that's where we learnt about how to be guys and how to be people in the world. And like in the northern suburbs of Adelaide, where it's working class and it's welfare and it's low socioeconomic, like it was that tough mantra in order to survive and thrive and pave your own way. In 2022, we don't actually have to be like that. There's so many more options to open up and get the help we need and be the people that we've always wanted to be, and not just happen to be now. So,
but do you find that even now there's not that translation that this is available to you,
particularly for guys? Because like whenever I look up like a new therapy service for myself, like there's a lot of women-centric ones or kid-centric ones, but not so many for men. And still men struggle. Like men do struggle to still talk about it. Like I'm on different socials and I'm starting to see guys open up, particularly dads are opening up about wanting to be the dad that they never really had. Like my dad was very hands-off, and I think if I had a closer relationship with him, maybe things would have been different. But that's just not what we did. It wasn't what he knew how to do.
Yeah, sure.
And even today, like, he wouldn't sit down and talk to me about mental health. Like, it's not something that he would openly do.
Yeah.
So I think it's still so much of a taboo for guys to talk about. But that's why I do what I do. That's why I jump on podcasts. That's why I've got the Mindful Men podcast, where I just talk about random things with random people across the world to show guys that it's okay just to start talking.
Sure. Now, do you find it difficult to put in like you said about your dad, like he wants to, he doesn't talk about that. Do you try to kind of make that happen or try to talk with him? Do you find it difficult to like share?
Well, he's the kind of guy that you ring the household, because he still lives in Adelaide, and I live in the Sunshine Coast now in Queensland.
Okay.
So he's the kind of guy that if you rang the house, he would just go, "Oh, I'll get mum for you." So he's a man of few words.
Yeah.
So like, it's just
talk to mom about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he gets the filtered version. So you tell mom tells him in the filtered version. That's what happens.
I think mum's even just stopped bothering him now. She just kind of keeps it to herself. So.
Okay, so he's a man of few words. And back then it was that, because they had so much to tend to. They had more responsibilities on their shoulders and more socio-economic issues that came first before before all of that, and they chose the right women to kind of like make sure that this was happening. That they take care of the family. So I see that. Yeah, that's different. Yeah. So let's talk about, like, now I know that you're an entrepreneur, right? Let's talk about your business. Like, I rarely meet men who kind of start this, focusing on just men. There's women, they focus on moms with boys or moms with young sons, but I think I know on two other people that have, like, especially men, that have men-centered businesses. How is that for you?
It's amazing. So it's only a startup business. I've only been in operation since August.
Okay.
So I think my journey into business was one of, probably I took a 15-year detour. But I remember coming out of high school, and I said to myself, like, I want to help people that are just like me, but I didn't know what like me was, because we still weren't talking about mental health in the late 90s, early 2000s. So I went to uni, and I could have done two things. I could have done visual art, because I loved art, and art was a great way for me to manage my anxiety and my depression. It was a way for me to express myself. But I chose the safe option, a generic degree that could lead to a 9-to-5 job.
Right.
Because I thought that's how you live the Australian dream or the American dream. Or
absolutely.
Dream
9 to 5. Yeah.
You get a 9-to-5, you get a mortgage, you get a family.
Yep.
This is the path that we're supposed to take in life.
Right.
And so I did a first year in psychology, but it just got too difficult. So I ended up finishing in anthropology and landed myself in the public service, in the Australian public service, which is government work. And I spent 15 years there, and it got to a point when I think 2018, when I'm like, there's got to be more to life than doing this 9 to 5. It was a good job. Like, I had some really interesting jobs, but a lot of boring jobs as well. And it just didn't light me up. And by this time, I knew what mental health was, because I'd been diagnosed in 2012, I think it was. Yeah, so 10 years ago. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm going to get into mental health. So that's when I decided to do mature age study, and I went back and did a Masters of Social Work. So I was doing that part-time in the nights and the weekends. I was still working my 9 to 5. We had 2 kids in that time, and then we had COVID lockdowns halfway through. So COVID came along in 2020, and that's when I burnt out as well. And through that burnout process, and even before that, I'm like, I've got to start my own business. I've got to take control of my own life, get that time freedom, that money freedom that I want for my kids, because I want to be around when they do their sports, and I want to be there for pickups and drop-offs at school and stuff like that. And I don't want to work 9 to 5. I want to work. I want to have more freedom in my life and more control about my own destiny.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where the seed for having a business started.
Mm-hmm.
And then so last year I finished the degree, and then this year I said, you know what? It's time. It's time for me to step away from that only career I've ever known and start this business. So it's been really scary because all of a sudden I've got to find my own clients. I don't have a stable income because I had the stable income for 15 years. Mm-hmm. I've got the mortgage. I've got kids in school. But now I've got to find, work. And so I've got social anxiety. So it's weird because I have a podcast and I'm talking to you. But like putting myself out there and networking.
It's a different, it's
really
different,
confronting for me. Mm-hmm. And so, but I'm just doing it. I'm out there talking to businesses and other people and slowly getting clients, calling and trying to work out how to do Google ads and Facebook ads and Instagram lives and all that type of stuff, like the daggy dads do.
Yeah.
And it's great. Like I've got some clients in the door. I've got supervision where I'm getting some feedback from another social worker, and I've got big dreams for it. So this is only in its baby stage, but eventually I've got this idea of a community space where guys in the community can come and get mental health support, but also like get well-being support. So do things like yoga, Pilates.
Oh yeah.
There's a coffee shop there, so have some coffee, have barbecues on the weekend. Do some exercise as well, and just be well and live well. And that's the dream for Mindful Men in the future.
Okay. Because I hear you about the 9 to 5, and I've been talking about this with everybody. I owned my own business for about 20 years, and then I started working for someone else, a nonprofit organization, which I want to say I love the mission, but I hated the whole thing. I just hated it all. And I was like, there's no, when you are assigned or purposed, I don't see how you can stay. I just don't. I'm a free spirit. My son always says, "Mom, you're a free spirit. You could do whatever you want." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" No, I have to listen to. No, it's different with free spirits. They just get in and they fit in. It's just that's the way it is. So, when I was there, I felt like I was confined. Like I really felt like I had these wings that just couldn't and I kept flapping and I couldn't get out of it. And I for you 15 years, I can imagine I did 4, I think, and I started having migraines and I had to go see the doctor. I was on medication, and that was just 4 years. 4 years. And I can imagine 15 I would be somewhere, and it wouldn't be in front of you. It wouldn't be in front of you, I'm pretty sure. But
the early part of my career, like I was very naive anyway. I was only young, and so I did learn a lot around systems and networking and people and all that type of. But I also knew what I didn't want.
Right.
And it wasn't that 9 to 5. I wanted more control.
Right.
But it's funny. I've exchanged the 9 to 5 for a 7 to 7. It feels.
And you get to learn, and this is what I've learned along the way. The 7 to 7 then turns to, I got to do something about this. So now I start creating a team, hiring people to do the work, that I now become the CEO instead of the person that's doing all the work. And so you get to, it becomes the 7 to 3, then it becomes 7 to 9, and it gives you the work and the free. It will change. As you go along, because I've learned that, and you seem like someone that's going to invest, knows that it's important for this business. So you're going to invest in yourself, and you're going to say, hey, I need these people to be working for me. I can't be doing all this. And
I'm already thinking about that.
Yes. Listen, it took me getting a coach of my own, a coach of my own to tell me that. And guess what I did? I still they don't know how to talk like me. And I still bucked against him. And he was very calm. He says, well, think about what I'm saying, but I think you'd be better off working over here as a CEO doing this, and this, than opposed to doing this. So I was
Yeah.
like, I'm still bucking, because this is, like you said, my baby. This is my baby. You can't mess with my
Yeah.
baby, and that's how you feel as an entrepreneur. This is your baby. No one can do her like you know,
Mm.
you
Yeah.
know, and you don't want to trust everyone, but then you have to trust yourself well enough to trust others that they can do the job that you're looking to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
So
Well, don't worry. I'm already looking to outsource my admin.
yes, that's great. Yes, that was the best thing I ever did. When I did that, I was like, now what do I do with myself? What do I do with myself? I don't have to do that, and all I'm doing is like doing videos, being doing some lives and talking to people, making the connections, going on appointments, networking. That's what a CEO does, that's what he or she does. It's like you're the face of the business. You got to go and show, so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Definitely.
different. It's different when you first start off. And someone just taught me this just a few moments ago. She said to me, we have to think about our business like Target, Walmart, any of those businesses do, right? And I didn't think
Mm.
about it. So I started thinking about my clients, and I was like, wait a minute. My clients are still doing everything by themselves. And that's right. You have to have a team. You got to hire people. And it was like, what we're leaning on is the small business part of it. We got to start studying
Yeah.
business. We got to say, we're in business. We're not in small business. We're in business.
I like that. Yeah, it's a really good mindset, actually. Yeah, I really
Yeah.
like that.
Because it
So I'm gonna
makes a
start
change.
recruiting tomorrow.
Yeah. Go on Indeed. Go on Indeed and start hiring. And it makes so much sense. And even I was like, well, I know you're not here for the audience. You're here for me. you know, you're here for me. So tell us about how, being a speaker. And we haven't talked about that. I haven't talked about this before, but a male speaker in front of the masses. How does that process look so that audience can feel what you feel when you walk out there and you got like 100 to 500 people like in front of you? How does that feel?
Oh, I haven't had that many people, but I think more my speaking it comes through more my like telehealth and
Okay.
my podcast. So
Okay.
I speak that way, and I
Okay.
am we are booking up for summits coming up in December.
Okay.
And in the new year, I'm going to be hosting a men's group in Australia here.
Oh, okay.
Via telehealth, so it accesses, it enables me to access people across the country.
Oh, nice.
But a lot of it is like doing Instagram lives and Facebook lives,
Okay.
and having my own podcast with the hope that my voice and my story,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, inspires something in somebody else to get support.
Right.
And whether or not that's one person in Australia or one person across the globe, it's really focused in that way because getting a room of 500 blokes getting 500 blokes into a room is probably not going to happen.
Right.
Particularly in this early stage. So at the moment, my focus is online.
Right. Okay.
Because it reaches people in their homes. It reaches people when they're sitting on the train or the bus or they're driving in their car.
Okay.
A lot of guys do, work in their car and they spend a lot of time in their car. So if they can hear me on a podcast or whatever, that's where my focus is for speaking. And it serves two purposes. One, it helps me with my social anxiety, and I'm pretty open with that because when we have a fear of talking, it's good to put ourselves out there into talking situations and share our stories. And by doing that over and over again, it gives me confidence, and I can instill that onto my clients as well. The more you can talk about mental health, the easier it gets. Because the first time I did talk about it, I think it was the hardest thing I've ever had to say, and I choked on the words as they came out to my doctor. But now I can talk to you across the globe, and it's easy for me to talk about. So it's really, that's where the focus is. And eventually, I'd love to get into some bigger, 500,000 people type events and just keep sharing this story. And I know I would be a nervous wreck because I'm a nervous wreck before I even press record on my own podcast. You should see it. Like I will be pacing the house and going to the toilet 5 times and doing all those nervous wees on my own podcast.
Yeah.
But once I sit down and I put the camera on and speak to someone like you, that all just goes away and I'm in the zone. And I think because I'm so passionate about it, and like even as I said, I'm doing that 7 to 7 work. I kind of jump out of the bed at sometimes I'm on these at 5:45 in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
But I love it because it lights me up and it's really my purpose now.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have done that in my old 9 to 5.
No.
I would have been dragging myself out of bed at minutes to 9 to start work.
No, I would have never done that. I was like, no. No.
Yeah, so like the speaking and as you said, it's me. It's putting my face out there for the business. And Mindful Men is Simon Rennie, and Simon Rennie is Mindful Men. And the more I can do it online, then that will lead to bigger things. I mean, as I said, I'm only a new business, so it's baby steps. But yeah, there's big things coming in the future.
Sure. Can you share with me? I know you said it a couple of times. What social anxiety is?
Yeah. So. Social anxiety and anxiety in more general is, we have stress in our lives, and a lot of people feel stressed. They might have something coming up. Maybe they've got to do a presentation at work, for example, and, they think about it. They get a bit nervous. They might get shaky hands or sweating and all this type of stuff. But then it goes away. But things with anxiety is it's much more profound and it's much longer lasting. Okay. So even after the event, you could get to the point where you're vomiting. You could have gastro issues like diarrhea and all that type of stuff, migraines, headaches, and almost panic attacks as well. I've had panic attacks leading, from social anxiety.
Okay.
But also my anxiety is connected with obsessive compulsive disorder. And so in obsessive compulsive disorder, I have a high level of perfectionism as well.
Okay.
So I need things to be exactly perfect. And if they're not perfect or they're not just right, that drives a huge amount of overwhelm and anxiety to the point where I might not be able to function. Now, this is all happening on the inside of me because I wear a mask. So on the outside, I look like this and I'm talking like this. On the inside, I'm basically crapping myself, like to put it brightly, so anxiety is much more profound than stress, and you hold on to that, and then it snowballs into something else and something else and something else, whereas stress starts and stops. It's a more profound version of stress, and so social anxiety is anxiety centered around socialization.
Okay.
So it's around talking to people and it's around being in social environments, like going to a party or whatever. You might become really reserved. And people that experience social anxiety often refrain from going into social events. So they might say, yeah, I'm going to come to the party, but never show up.
That's even with family? That's even with a family function?
Yeah, family, friends, it could be anything, because the whole idea of being around other people, while you want to do it, and it's not like you don't want to do it, but it's the fact that it's just the sounds, the having to talk and converse, can be quite overwhelming, particularly for people who are introverted and more likely to keep to themselves or have a very small social network, like maybe 1 or 2 friends as opposed to 50 friends type thing.
Okay.
So.
Okay. That's very good information. Well, audience, I know you hear this, and this is really good information. I have to ask questions, and thank you, Simon, for that. Is there a way that the audience can kind of get in touch with you, and on social media? How can they reach out?
Yeah. So the best way is through my website because it links to my social media. Because I've got so many links now, it's hard to reel them all off. But so my website is www.mindful-men.com.au, and that links to my socials. So I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, but I've also got the Mindful Men podcast as well, which is on YouTube. It's also on Apple and Spotify and a few other platforms.
Nice.
And if you're in Australia, my website has my therapy support on it as well. So if you're in Australia and wanting therapeutic support, I do telehealth Australia-wide, so it's like this Zoom call.
Okay.
But I also do in-person on the Sunshine Coast where I live as well. So
nice.
I'm happy to come out to people's homes or in a community, but also I've got a clinic one day a week in Maroochydore here. So, the best place is the website.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you very much. Well, Simon Rennie, I appreciate giving this information to my audience. Now, what would you give, final words that you would give the audience to encourage them or empower them?
Yeah, so I guess from a business perspective, it's follow your dreams
Yeah.
and really it's never too late to like change careers. So, think about what we've talked about today. And I chose that safe career. It didn't light me up, but now I went back and did more study, and now I'm in that career I've always wanted to be in. And sometimes it can take 15 years to figure out what that is.
Right.
So, follow your dreams. If you're starting university or college or whatever, go with the course that lights you up, not the one that you think is going to give you a 9 to 5.
Right.
But if you're talking about mental health, just know that it's okay to be not okay, and it's
Yeah.
not weak to speak. And guys, you can do it too. Like I'm here talking about it, you can talk about it too.
That is terrific. Well, Simon, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. And that brings us to the end of the show. Thanks for listening, audience. If you enjoyed the episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post it about on social media, or just leave a review. To catch me with my latest goings on, you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at EJW Coaching. And I want to thank you again, Simon. This is Edna White and my esteemed guest of Mindfulness, Simon Rennie, saying goodbye for now.
Edna, thanks so much. I really enjoyed our chat. And audience, get on to Edna and give her a 5-star rating. She's doing amazing work.
Thank you.